All right, welcome back for the third part of One Man's Faith. We are looking at Ephesians just after chapter 4, verse 30, and a little bit after that. We're to put aside, we're not to have anger and wrath, clamor. Clamor, that's what we were talking about last. It's a crying, an outcry. Several places it's used. It says, and they cried out, saying, what business do we have to do with each other, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? These were the demons. And so they were crying out. Say, what are you coming here for? Okay. In Matthew 9, it says, Jesus went out from there. Two blind men followed him, crying out. Okay, that's the word. That's the same word. It's kruge. Kruge. That's the Greek word. They cried out. Okay, so we shouldn't be crying out, especially in a negative sense. We're to put off slander. That's the distraction. That's speech injurious to another's good name. We shouldn't injure. In other words, we need to watch rumors. We need to not help rumors grow. In other words, if you hear somebody say something about somebody else, don't continue it. Say, how do you know? Oh, well, such and such told me. No. No, listen. If you hear a rumor, go to the source. Go to the person. Somebody was spreading rumors about me that I was going to retire. And two of the people that heard it came to me. See, that's what you should do. Instead of accepting, and no, I'm not retiring, just to let you know. But don't accept it. If you want to know the truth, and you should want to know the truth, so you can help put aside the rumor and not spread it. I don't care who it is that told you. Be careful. Find out the truth. Find out the truth. So slander is hurting somebody. And malice, we're supposed to put all those things along with malice. Malice is ill will, a desire to injure. Sometimes we like to spread those rumors because we want to get back at the person. And for you and me, we can't do that. That is not allowed for us to do. As a matter of fact, Paul goes on and he says, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ has also forgiven you. See, we can't hold grudges. We can't be angry toward people. We can't have unforgiveness, because that's not what God did for you. There's a parable that talks about a man who owed $1 million to the master. And the master was going to throw him in jail because he didn't have it. I think y'all probably remember this, but he was going to throw him in jail, and the servant said, "Oh, have mercy on me. I'll find a way to pay you back." And so the master said, "Okay, I'm going to forgive your $1 million debt to me." But the servant goes out and he finds another friend of his that owes him $100. And the same thing occurred. His friend said, "Oh, give me time, I could pay you back." And he wouldn't do it, and he threw him in prison. And the master found out. And the master came and said, "You wicked slave, I forgave you $1 million, and you can't forgive him 100? And he threw him in jail to live the rest of his life. The concept behind that is, we have been forgiven. the $1 million, you and me. And our brother or sister may do something against us, but it'll never add up to the $1 million debt that we were forgiven. And that's what happens when we walk in unforgiveness. We take a person who owes us $10 and we won't forgive them even though God forgave us a $1 million debt. So we have to learn to forgive as God forgave us. Listen, God didn't have to have Jesus come and die. God could have had him come and be resurrected and not taken our sin. But God loved us so much that he forgave us and had our sin dump on Jesus so he could be the sin and eradicate the nature of sin from our lives. That's why Paul says, you're a new creature. You're not the old. We're not supposed to sin. We're supposed to understand what Jesus has done for us and walk in that. And proclaim what he has done. Show people, hey, God has forgiven me. If you won the lotto, you'd be telling people. Well, it's the same way. You've won a lotto. God has given you everything pertaining to life and godliness. He has given you everything to be able to accomplish, to have an abundance to accomplish everything in love and good deeds. Oh, man. What an awesome thing that you and I have going for us. Because he loved us. And he says, I want you to love the way that I love. So he goes on, and in chapter 5 he says, therefore, be imitators of God. Since God forgave, we are to forgive. He says, walk in love. That's agape. That's the God type of love. 1 Corinthians 13 tells you what agape is. Verses 4 through 8. He says, walk in love just as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for you, an offering and a sacrifice to God as a fragrant aroma. You see, we're supposed to put off anger, clamor, bitterness, wrath, malice. We're supposed to put these things of slander. We're supposed to put all these things off and walk in love. Be tender-hearted. Forgive each other. Listen, if someone goofs, don't throw him aside. Don't get angry and say, I'll never speak to you again. Understand that you and I look at the world differently through the glasses we've been given by the giftings that we have within us. And so if I have the gift of administration, I'm going to be more goal-oriented than you having the gift of mercy who's love-oriented. Do you see what I'm saying? They all supposed to work together. And because you see me maybe being a little harsh and your eyes harsh, I may just be being administrative and saying, hey, we got to get this done. Now, yes, it's possible I might not do it in the most loving way. That's something I have to learn. There are negative sides to these gifts. We have to learn what that is and learn to walk in love, okay? But that's our job. He says, he goes on and he says, don't let immorality, impurity, or greed even be named among you as is proper among saints. In other words, when people know us and look at us, they should not see in us immorality, impurity, and greed. They should not see that we have a desire to want more and we'll do anything to get it. They should see that we are pure, that we don't walk around in filthiness, in lying, cheating, even cussing. You know, those are things that are not befit somebody who's a Christian. We shouldn't be walking in immorality. That's the word porneia, pornography. These things are not proper for us who are saints. There can be no filthiness, no obscenities. There can be no silly talk, coarse jesting. But we are to walk in thanks. If someone does something, we aren't to just put them down because they did something right and we're jealous. That would fit in line with coarse jesting. You know, silly talk, calling somebody something, a name that you stupid idiot, something like that. That's wrong. That's wrong. And he goes on and he says in verse 5 of chapter 5, "For this you know with certainty, that no immoral or impure person or covetous man," in other words, anybody who walks in immorality, impurity, and greed, who is an adulterator, has an inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. If you walk in those things, you're not walking in the ways of God. And there are people that can say, yes, I've accepted Jesus, and you look at their life and you say, really? People should be able to look at our life and say, yeah, wow, I want what he's got. We need to learn to put that off. We need to learn to ask God's forgiveness and walk in his ways. A lot of what Paul talks about here is walking in a certain way, walking in a manner worthy of your calling. And you've been called to be a Christian and to show it forth. All right, last break. Go ahead, get a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.